Hi beautiful people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I'll be showing you how I was able to achieve this beautiful look. If you're interested, please kindly keep on watching. The first step is that I went ahead to clean her face with my Adventure micellar cleansing water to remove any dirt from her face. When I was done with that, I went ahead to moisturize her face using my Moist Essence moisturizer for a start from Blossom Makeup. After applying my Moist Essence moisturizer, I went ahead to apply the second moisturizer, which is the Merak moisturizer. So I make sure I apply the moisturizer generously all over her face. I wanted her face to be well hydrated and moist. Once that is done, I'll go in with my Merak Aqua Blue primer, which I apply all over her face except her under eye. After applying my primer, I now use my Kiss Beauty setting spray to set everything up. Then I use my fan to dry it up. For foundation, I mix two foundation, the V Beauty foundation and the xclusive foundation. I'll just leave the shade in the description box. After applying my foundation, I use my soft and damp beauty sponge from CPD to blend the foundation. So I use a beauty sponge to tap the product gently into her skin. So I was just pressing gently to make sure everything is smooth, there's no harsh line, everything is well blended. So one of the key to makeup is the power of blending. You have to blend, especially starting with foundation. That is why it is called foundation, the base. You have to blend very well. Moving forward, I'll be applying my contour. So for contour, I use my darker shade of foundation for V Beauty in the shade Ebony. So I apply the contour around the temple, underneath the cheekbone, the side of her nose. So when applying the contour, you need to use a foundation which is like 1 to 2 shades darker than your skin tone. So apply around that area, the temple and underneath the cheekbone. So start blending from the cheekbone moving towards the temple to make sure everything is well distributed and the face is well snatched. For blush, I use this red shade from the 3D blush palette from Gorgeous Me, that's girl, to apply on the apple of her cheek. So for blush, I started blending, moving from the apple of her cheek towards the temple. So you're blending in that direction from the apple of the cheek, you blend towards the temple. So applying that. For concealer, I use my Eyebrow concealer. I'll leave the specific shade in the description, and the Adventure concealer. So I started by applying the lighter concealer, which is the Adventure, around the inner corner of her eyes. Then for the outer corner, I use the Eyebrow concealer. So to contour the side of her nose, I use my VA Beauty foundation in the shade Maroon to contour, to just snatch the nose. I wanted that nose to be snatched to use in size. So after applying it, I use the side of my beauty sponge from CPD to blend in the foundation and to make sure there is no harsh line. So when I was done with that, I now use my Kiss Beauty Fix Spray to set everything. So after spraying, I use my fan to dry it up. So to set the face, I use my Adventure setting powder in the shade Banana to set all the highlighted area. That's the T-zone, under her eyes, her forehead, her nose. To set the rest of her face, I use the same shade of foundation, the shade of powder, which is equivalent to her skin tone, from my V Beauty powder palette. So I just use my big fluffy brush to apply the powder all over the rest of her face. That has the blank spaces which has not been set with a setting powder. So Andy, remember, when it comes to makeup, anything you use wet, you have to dry it up. That means you use dry. So remember that we first of all contour her nose with the cream foundation, Now we are going to use the powder to make that area dry. So I still went further to contour her nose using my exact shade from the powder V Beauty powder palette to just snatch that nose. And then for the area we previously contour, I still went further to use my shade from the powder palette to contour all the rest of the area, that is the temple underneath the cheekbone. So after which, when I was done with that, I now went ahead to still use my Kiss Beauty Fix Spray to set everything. Then I let it to dry. So for reverse contour and baking, I use my merak baking spice, that's my merak setting powder in the shade Ginger to snatch the nose to bring out the contour. So I left a generous quantity under her eye so that every moisture under her eyes can be absorbed, and in order for the eyeshadow fallout to be easily taken up. So for the reverse contour, I used my shade which is lighter, one shade lighter than her skin tone, for my V Beauty powder palette. As can you see, reverse contour helps to bring out the contour. So for brows, I first of all started by laying down the hair using my brows gel or brow steamer from Nikki's Signature and a brush. After which I went further to apply my setting powder on it to make sure every moisture and oil is absorbed, and then I use my big fluffy brush to dust up the excess setting powder from the brow, sorry. After doing so, I went further to outline the brows. So to outline the brows, I use my flat small angle brush, well precise angle brush, and my brows pomade from KR Cosmetic, that's Karitte, or is Karitte, to outline. So I started by outlining the bottom of the brows. When I was done outlining the bottom, I went to the top. So when producing my outline, I always try to minimize the size. Like, I don't like making it too large, because when it's too large, you have to start over concealing it to reduce the size. So this my client wanted the brows to be a bit big. She doesn't like too tiny brows, so I had to make it to be a little bit big. So to fill in the brows, I use my well sharpened. When I say well sharpened, it should be sharpened and pointed. Well sharpened and pointed Davis pencil. So what I was trying to do is I tried to produce tiny hair like, when I say hair like stroke, like when you look at it from a distance, you feel like it is hair, of which it's stroke. It's just like stroke. So I tried to produce tiny hair like stroke, which mimics hair, to make it look natural. So for the beginning, I try to make it a little bit scanty so that it can look natural. I don't make the stroke to be like too close, because it will make that area to be like to be dark. So I try to make it a little bit scanty to make it look very natural. So after outlining the brows, I went into concealing. To conceal, I use my small angle brush, my flat angle, well precise angle brush. And I also had my foundation. So for her skin tone, I use my V Beauty foundation to conceal the beginning of the brows. The V Beauty foundation in the shade maroon. Like whenever I want to conceal, I always use a foundation which is like one shade darker than her skin to conceal the beginning, because we want that area to look natural. We don't want any harsh line around that area. So for the rest of the for the rest, I use my lighter shade of foundation, or you could use a lighter shade of concealer. uh anyway, so the layers, I always like to use concealer because it gives like full coverage. Yeah, so I use my concealer which is lighter than her skin to conceal the rest of that area. So after doing that, I now use my small fluffy brush to blend in the excess foundation and concealer. So to conceal the upper section of the brows, I use the same foundation which I use for the beginning. That's my V Beauty foundation, the shade maroon, to conceal the upper section. So I use a side of my brush. Most often, I always like to use a tip. So for this look, I use the side of my brush, of my small angle brush, to conceal the upper section. After which, when I was done with that, I still went further to blend in the excess foundation, because that area look moist after blending in. So when blending, I make sure I place my middle of my brush on the line of the foundation, such that when I'm blending, it's taking care of any harsh line. At the end of the day, there will be no harsh line around that area. So after blending, I go to my V Beauty powder palette, look at the shade which is the same as the foundation I used in concealing the upper section. So I apply the same powder, the powder on that area, to make sure every moisture is absorbed. That area needs to be dry. Remember, with makeup, anything you apply dry or wet, you have to apply dry. Yeah, that is it. So for eyeshadow, it's no news that whenever I want to apply your eyeshadow, it's essential to start by applying the eyeshadow base so that the eyeshadow can easily stick to it. So I used my eyeshadow base from Blossom Makeup. I applied on the eyelid where the eyeball lies. So after applying it, I used my fluffy brush to blend in. So I started blending it from the edges such that there will be no harsh line when I apply my eyeshadow.
change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright, and for the first time in a long time I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I ain't going back, I'm not falling. I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear destiny and it's calling. I'll keep my head up high through the downs and lows, and we're all going life. Still nobody knows, but I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.
So guys, after applying everything, I use my soap rose silly spray to lock in the makeup to see everything. Then I let it to dry up. So guys, this is a finished look. What do you think? Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, please. Bye. Love you.